This is the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast with your host, Kevin Murray.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. On this episode, we have a special guest that brings a ton of positive energy to the fantasy football community. He's one of my favorites in the industry. You've seen his work in so many places, and that includes at Football Guys and Yahoo Fantasy. From RotoBaller, it's Troy King. Welcome in, my friend.
Yo, Dr. Kevin, look, I appreciate you, man. Look, we've been friends for a long time, and I'm glad that we finally, get to do this show together. I'm very excited, man. Thank you for having me on.
I love it. It's an absolute pleasure, and again, seeing you around town, whether it's in LA, we're both flying, you're flying across the country. I'm flying down the coast. Seeing you at SFB live and at Trophy Smack was fun, and at the Expo, it's always a pleasure to see you, buddy. So happy to have you on.
I agree, man. It was really good seeing you at those places as well.
So you're a Florida guy. Were you born and raised in Orlando area?
So I was actually born in Miami. I was raised in the Fort Lauderdale area, and I've been living in Orlando since 2008. So I've basically just been creeping my way up the state ever since I was born. But yeah, I went to UCF as my undergrad, and basically I've been staying in Orlando for a million years now, it feels like.
I love it. And you're a tried and true Dolphins fan. Is that for life?
Oh, for life. So my mom and dad, huge Dolphins fans. So I was basically born into it. I always loved the Dolphins, but as I entered like my college age years, basically like 16 to 18 years old is when I really started falling in love with them. Like as a kid, kind of just following your parents' fandom, and then eventually you fall into the fandom. So that's kind of how it worked out.
Nice. So do you remember your worst loss experience as a sports fan?
So the problem with being a Dolphins fan is that the Patriots beat us a lot. So I would say the most recent worst one was a couple years ago when Dolphins had a chance to make the playoffs, and all we had to do was beat the Buffalo Bills. This was pretty recent, and the Bills destroyed us. So basically, that there was, all we had to do was beat them, and just the way the blowout was, we just had no shot. So that's probably the worst one I can think of, because again, if we won, we were in, and we were nowhere near winning that game.
That never feels good. Do you have an all-time favorite sports moment? Doesn't have to be Dolphins, obviously, because you've had a shortage of those.
Oh yeah, you're right. I would say my all-time favorite was in 2006 when the Miami Heat won the championship with D Wade and Shaq. That was huge. Close seconds are, the championships with LeBron here, because I'm also a Miami Heat fan, just FYI. And then it's not really a moment, but like an era. Like I was in love with the Dolphins Wildcat era, because I feel like, because most of my life, being a Dolphins fan wasn't that cool. Then the whole nation was like, yo, what are they doing with this Wildcat? We were so exciting, and it was so revolutionary. And I was like proud to be a fan, because most people just made fun of us. So I was like, that was really cool for me.
Yeah, no, that brings back some memories. I love that. Who was the stars of that backfield? Wasn't it Cadillac?
It was Ricky Williams and Ronnie Brown.
Ronnie Brown, the Cadillac Williams partner at Auburn, but Ronnie Brown and Ricky Williams.
Yep, those are my favorite players, man. Love them both.
I love it. So, do you remember when you first discovered fantasy football?
Yes. So I first discovered it actually in 2015. So I'm kind of like a late bloomer compared to some other people, but it was a work league. So like, I was always a football fan, like, hey, like you should try fantasy football. And for me, the reason why I was reluctant to get into it is because I know a lot of people like to play their guys from like opposing teams. So like I didn't really want to have to like draft Dolphins and Bills players and Jets, but they had good players on their team. So like for me, it's like the fandom and rivalry thing where I was like kind of reluctant, and I'm like, okay, like I can't be good at this if I only draft like Dolphins players, obviously. So I was reluctant at first, but then I started getting into it, figured out, I was pretty decent at it. I liked the strategy of the game. I liked that, obviously just following football for so long, I understood the concept of how to play. So yeah, 2015, my work league, and it's still going. So it's basically my work league basically turned into my home league, and it's the one I care about the most. And so far I'm in second place, so I'm excited about that.
Nice. So that league is still going.
It's still going on. It's still strong, still extremely competitive, a lot of trash talk.
I love it. Do you remember in those earlier years with fantasy whose content you were consuming?
Yeah, so it's funny because it just kind of tie into maybe like latter of the show, but the only content I was really aware of at the time was like Yahoo, and ESPN. So Yahoo, I was following like Andy Behrens and Matt Harmon, and ESPN obviously Matthew Berry, because I thought that was the only sources to go to. And the fantasy footballers, I can't forget them. Fantasy footballers
Yeah.
really, really like those dudes a lot.
Yeah, no, that's funny. That makes me think about how I discovered this fantasy community I didn't know existed. I'd played the game for like 20 years, right? And I had always just kind of, if I was getting in content, it would be from like the Yahoo guys or from some of the ESPN guys. And I didn't realize it wasn't until I did like the Commissioner of the Year contest that I found all these people, like the footballers. You're right, and then even more, brands like, I guess one of my passions is I want people who just, casual players, to find sites like Football Guys or like RotoBaller, right? Like sites that people don't know exist. So that hits a chord with me for sure. So what do you love the most about playing fantasy football? What about the experience of fantasy football do you enjoy the most?
Man, that's a tough question. I'm very competitive. So I like to win. I like to win. I like the odds are stacked against you. I like the fact that it's no, there's luck and skill. So I like the fact that it's like, okay, like it takes you have to go a little bit extra mile in fantasy football, whether it's like scouring the waivers, being up to date on injury reports, making sure you have like the right fab bid for like the hot free agent player. It's the strategy and the winning that I like. I mean, in terms of like, also, I really like, the community itself is also a huge part of it. But in terms of like the game itself, just the competitive, man. I like to compete against people, and I like to win. I love the strategy behind it.
Nice, nice. Now you got your home league. Is there an industry league that you consider like your favorite league to compete in?
I'm in way too many leagues, Dr. Kevin. I don't know if I have one like that. I am part of a league in terms of like an industry league that most folks will know a lot of the people in it. JJ Zacharysen's in it, Matt Harmon's in it. It's called the Injury Prone League, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
run by Edwin Porwin. And like, so I would say that's probably the one that like people will be the one that probably in terms of talking about it, like that's kind of cool, just being able to compete against those guys. And like they're tough. They're really tough to go against. So that's a really cool league. But I think I'm in 20, which to some people it's not that much, but to me it's a lot to set lineups. And most of them like are dynasty best ball leagues. But yeah.
Now, have you gotten around doing live drafts with your home league, or is that not a thing still? I know at one point you
Uh
weren't doing those.
we sometimes it's not like an annual thing that we do. I would love to get to the point where we do that. I mean, some of us are in different parts of the country or like different parts of the state, but I would love to get to it. And just because I love the live drafts, like I said, we did for like Scott Fish Bowl and all that. Like to me, there's nothing like a live draft, man. There's something about just competing in person and drafting and people sniping you and you sniping everyone else and seeing that reaction on people's faces. Like there's nothing like it.
Yeah, and I mean the Scott Fish Bowl live drafts. I mean they bring that, right? It's weird having played Scott Fish Bowl for several years, and it is what it is. And then when he's brought those live drafts into it, I've been to two of them. I've hosted one and saw you at the other, and you too. You've been to two live drafts, right? And tell me about those experiences.
Oh, sure. So the Orlando one was really cool. Shout out to Bob Gilchrist because he was actually, he's a Boston guy, but he happened to be in Orlando at the time. So he was like running things, and that was a really fun experience. We did it like in like the Disney hotel, and that was my first time. Like, I mean, I've met some people at the expo, but like there's some people that weren't at the expo that were there. And again, it was just fun. Just like, okay, we're all Florida people, we all competing, and that was really awesome. And then at the time, also the Scott Fish Bowl live draft was on, so I was like appearing on that. So that whole thing was cool, just for as like a first experience live draft sort of thing. And then LA was really cool, man. Like
Yeah.
just the seeing obviously you and so many people like Liz Loza, and like a million different people. My friends LQ, Sam Holt, Maddie Kroll, Kendall. Like there's so many people that I got to see too. And yeah, that's my favorite one so far. And look, the Atlanta one's cool. The LA one was hard to top though. Shout out to Trophy Smack. They hosted a very,
Oh, for
very good
sure.
event.
For sure. And then you got the after hours of that, and
Oh
it was
yeah.
a
We had a
fun
good time.
event. Yeah, flying down there. Totally worth it. Are you considering getting back to that one this year? Was next year?
I'm gonna try, man. It's hard to fly across the country, but I
Yeah.
will say that if all plays out well, then I would love to go back for sure.
Yeah, no, it definitely has that same vibe to me. I just like it's hard to beat that. It's hard to beat that. Now, playing fantasy, do you have a big rivalry that you have? Like, is there an opponent that when you take them down, it's the most rewarding?
Oh, it's Laquan Jones. If anyone
Okay, okay.
follows, if always follows me or LQ on Twitter, y'all know like we're rivals. We're basically best friends. Like we're really close. And beating him, man, I don't know. Just like we trash talk a lot, but it's all love. But when I beat him, it's like okay, like it feels good. I could just talk trash for at least a week. 'Cause I think we're in about 4 leagues together. So like he'll be able to get revenge on me, or I'll get revenge on him. So.
I love it. That's great. Now, do you have favorite settings, formats in fantasy?
Um, I'm a super flex guy. I mean, maybe that's a basic answer, but I feel like for the more casual players, is one QB, but I would say like once you've been playing fantasy for a long time, I feel like you just automatically fall into super flex, 1 point PPR. I love tight end premium. I would say that's probably my favorite setting. But I do also like bonuses for like 100+ yards rushing and stuff like that. Like I feel like the bonuses really make a difference, like to give you a little bit of an edge. So I like that as well.
So you like scoring points?
Oh, I love scoring points.
I love it. I
Told you I'm
love it.
competitive, man. I like when my players score points for sure in
I
fantasy.
love it. So when did you start creating content? I mean, obviously you're part of the COVID era, right?
Yeah, I just started in 2020. So I discovered that fantasy football was a thing in 2020. And so I was just, on Twitter during COVID, and then it was a Scott Fishbowl. So I started following some people, saw that Scott Fishbowl was a thing. I'm like, oh, let me join it. And I didn't realize like how popular it was and how hard it was to get in. So I didn't get in, but then I joined a satellite. And through the satellite, I was making different connections and networking. And then again, I was just a player. And then all of a sudden, shout out to Dynasty Happy Hour. So Dynasty Happy Hour was the first company to reach out to me because I was tweeting like, hey, like, do you want to write? And at first I thought it was kind of crazy to write about fantasy football. Like me, like, nah, I just play. And then I got my shot writing. And then um, I think it's gonna be a later question that you got from me, but then I got into podcasting. And so yeah, 2020 is how I discovered it, and I've been doing it ever since.
Yeah, and you've contributed to several sites. I mean, we're talking, football guys, Yahoo, Ball Blast, obviously RotoBaller.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the
Yo,
journey,
yo,
like the steps along the way.
hey, what's crazy is like, look, man, good reporting on you because yeah, I contributed to all those places, right? Like places that people don't even know, like Dynasty Happy Hour, Ball Blast. Like I've been around the block. I've been around the block, and I've had amazing experiences at all those places. And through being able to contribute, I've learned to grow. I've met so many people, and I met some of my closest friends through fantasy, through all these things. And also, then again, that's what makes the expo so special because you kind of have like your OGs of like, hey, you've been around the block for a while. When they see you, it's like, yeah, Troy's been around for a minute, and this person's been around for a minute. Dr. Kevin's been around for a minute. So it's always nice to see, some of the OGs that have been doing this for a little bit.
I love it. Talk to me about your RotoBaller experience. Like, what brought you there? What are you excited about with RotoBaller at this time?
Oh, sure. So I guess I gotta shout out to LQ again. Unfortunately, I had to give him credit, but
Mm.
he started Robot first, and he basically referred me. Was like, yo, man, I really like this company, and they're just easy to get along with. Like for me, I think one of the most important things is one that they're on the rise. I also like a company that I like when companies like kind of allow you to be yourself. They like to give you what you want. Like, hey, what are you interested in? And work around you. And I like because I'm a busy guy. I got family, I got another job. So sometimes creating content, all of those content creators, like if you're not doing it full time, you usually have another job to do. So having flexibility to create content when it works for you, and also making sure it's quality, and also you want to make sure other place people who are at the company you work for also putting out quality. So I think also everyone else that's there is also another reason why I enjoy being there, because I'm like, okay, like it's not just myself putting out quality, but my teammates are also doing the same thing. Because
For
you don't
sure.
want to be like, you want to grow and you want to learn from people, and also you want to make sure like your content to a certain standard. I think RotoBaller is a good example of that as well. Some of all the other companies I've contributed to as well, but RotoBaller specifically, it gives me the freedom. And right now, the main thing I contributed during the season was buy and sell. Buy and sell, get players. But right now, the trade deadline's passed. So right now I've been focusing on videos, specifically on playoff prep, right? More so like even if you're an experienced player, it's more for the casual player, but there's certain things that you want to make sure to prepare for the playoffs, right? Like, and some of them are little basic things, staying up to date, watching injuries, stashing, backup running backs, not caring about like having like a second QB, like basic things like that is what I'm focused on now. But yeah, overall, these are the things I like about RotoBaller. They believe in me. They allow me the freedom to, do what I need to do. And yeah, that's why I really enjoy working there.
I love it. Now talk to me about the opportunity at High Points that you just got involved in.
Oh yeah. So, shout out to Luke, Sahhook and Des Bryant. So basically for those who don't know, High Point Sports, so it's a subsidiary of Personal Corner, which this Des Bryant's company. And they're all about the athlete. They're all about giving the athlete different, experiences and highlighting them just in a different way. And High Point Sports is a collection of creators, so about 32 of us. And I represent the Dolphins, shocker. But so basically, I do different content. So the way that I do it is if there's like major breaking news, and mainly focused like on fantasy, right? So, and it's mainly like news that matters, right? Like I don't need the video about Tyreek Hill being good. I think everyone knows he's good. But but yeah, so different things like crazy update that might happen, like what Devon Achane was, back in action. So covering things like that, and also working with other creators on the network, like for previews. So previews like are a big thing for us, and it's continuing to grow. It's kind of in its infancy right now, but I'm honored to kind of be part of the team that's growing. And obviously, working with Des Bryant is really cool. So I've done a couple shows with him, and obviously, like you saw him, he was at the expo. He's just a really chill dude. He's really down to earth. Like he doesn't big time you. That's one of the reasons why, like, I wanted to join the company, and also look, Sahhook, man, he's doing this thing too. So it's a really exciting opportunity. I'm excited to grow within that company.
For sure. Now Des at the expo is amazing. Just he shook every single person's hand. Like he was
so personable, and I think
go
you
ahead.
don't expect that for some athletes, So like sometimes like some people have bad athletic experiences, but I think he just gets it. And I think that's one thing that he knows like who his fans are. He knows like we're his biggest supporter. So it's like, and he takes the time to show appreciation, to show love. So shout out to Des, man. It's I hope more athletes follow that same path because we love him, we root for him, and look, any way we can get connected to him, I know we're all appreciative. So
Yeah, no, he certainly has a passion for these projects, which is cool to see. And so it must be fun for you to focus on dolphins, which is great, and then obviously have this experience and collaborate with all these different people. So I love that opportunity for you. Talk to me about just the way you bring positivity to your content and to to your presence on social media. Why is that important to you?
no, I appreciate it, man, and I appreciate you just noticing. So for me, I think it's important just to be yourself. I think that I think when you think about social media, there's a lot of negativity. There's a lot of BS that goes on social media. And for me, I try to just be different. I just try to, and it is to be, it's more so it's my personality. I'm not trying to be something I'm not. And I feel like I try to connect with people who are like-minded and just want to have fun, just want to have fun, just in it for the right reasons. And look, there's a lot of trolls, and I ignore that kind of stuff. I try not to, and I try to cater my social media to, at this point, like when I first got in, it was a little bit different, right? Because you'll have people who criticize your work or people who don't like you or whatever the case may be. And you kind of have to realize, like, I think also kind of take it a step back and understand, like, hey, like Twitter trolls or people who just don't like you, like they shouldn't matter in your life. Like there's other important things that are going on in everyone's life that are more important than some of these things. So that's why when I'm on social media, and I think just the community itself, it makes it really easy to feel accepted, to be positive. And it's like, again, and like transitioning, and also like the expo, it was just funny because, at the expo, like when you meet Twitter, internet people for the first time, because that's the first opportunity I've ever had to like meet people I've only met online, and everyone's basically the same exact people that I've met online. That's special, and I think that speaks to the community itself. So for me, it's easy to be positive when I have other people I can interact with that are cool and like-minded. Again, like we're all in it for the right reasons, and we like want to laugh, we want to have a good time, we want to talk about football, and that's about it, man. So it makes it easy to be positive, especially because I just try to again cater my social media to that as well.
Sure. Now, and obviously that's, when you bring up the expo, it is so refreshing to like if that first year you go, again, you hadn't met anybody, and then back again and back again. Like how much fun has that been to like just establish relationships where these friendships online have actually become like real, genuine connections.
Oh, it's what's crazy is I look forward to it every year. So I don't plan on missing it. I my goal is to continue to go every single year because it's just like it also feels like I haven't missed a beat, right? It's like if I talked to someone like the week before, like from last expo to the next expo, it's like it feels like it hasn't been that long. And I feel like that's kind of what's really cool about it as well. It's like, okay, like it hasn't been that long since I've seen you. We talk all the time. And it's just, and I feel like it's about belonging too. And I think that's what's part of it because, there's probably a lot of instances and cases where like, hey, like at first, when I first went, like it was a little bit nerve wracking. Like, oh my God, there's so many people and I've never met these people. But now it's like I haven't seen, my long lost friend that I haven't seen since last year. So I think that's
Yeah.
what's special about it. I continue to enjoy it and I can't wait to keep going back.
Yeah. It's like it's just a big family reunion. I love
Yeah,
it.
that's exactly what it is.
I love it. What's your favorite event at the expo?
My favorite. Well, the flag football tournament was pretty cool last year. I do like For me, I love the networking. So I like the Friday night in that open park, the
Yeah.
Centennial Park area.
Yep.
Love that. And I love the Saturday nights where everyone basically just networks and talks and with a drink in their hand. To me, those are the most my favorite parts of it. Like the expo itself is cool, but I think those two events is really why I go because that's when I get to have genuine conversations with people. And also what's funny is like at the expo, I barely talk about actual football. I
For
feel like
sure.
I talk about like everything else. And
Yeah.
it's just getting to know people. What's up? What's going on? Like, how have you been? How's the family? And it's like not just like small talk, but like generally, like, hey, how have you been? How are you doing? So those are my favorite things to do.
I love it. I love it. Hey, let's dive into some rapid fire questions. I'll just throw out a question, just a few of them, and you let me know what first comes to mind.
Sure.
What do you love most about what you're doing in the industry right now?
I love that I get to, help people, give advice, and I get to network and connect with new people.
I love it. What's been your biggest challenge in the industry thus far?
Biggest challenge is, continuing to grow, continuing to learn, and to really just better myself. I think there's a lot of people that are really talented, and I want to get as good as them or just get to the best that I can be. And sometimes it's challenging, especially, the time commitment as well when it comes to creating content.
For sure. Where did the version of your version of Thirsty Thursday come from?
Oh, this is not going to be rapid fire, but I'll try to make it quick. So, my version of Thirsty Thursday, shout out to Linda. That's my girl. We had a random text conversation about the term thirsty. And I was saying him, I thought thirsty meant, being thirsty for somebody. And it's Thirsty Thursday. And then she's like, oh, that's a drinking thing. I'm like, yeah, I know it's a drinking thing, but I think of thirsty a different way. So then I put a poll up. And then the poll was like 80-20 for drinking, but everyone was so curious about the 20% of people who thought of it as like a dirty version. And there was just all this discourse in the comments of going back and forth. It was like a storm. And I'm like, hey, let me make this a thing. So ever since then, I just kind of ran with it. And every Thursday, people think about me, which is kind of cool. So
For sure. I love it. How about you being referred to as the Glizzy King? What's that all about?
so it's funny. I think it was actually an expo. It actually came from the expo. So this is a Laquan Jones story. So I think we were just hungry, right? And then I was looking at the menu at the expo. There's not a lot of things I wanted. So I was about to order a hot dog. And then LQ was like, "You're gonna order a glizzy?" And I've never heard the term glizzy before. And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "A hot dog." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm kind of hungry." And it's just funny because like eating a hot dog just looks funny. So I was just like, I actually didn't order it because he was just like looking at me and roasting me on my damn order. So then it came to like a big story about I was gonna order a glizzy. And then it just turned into a thing. Like these random things keep happening, which it's funny and it's great for content, but that's kind of how it got started.
I love it. What are your favorite hobbies and activities outside of fantasy sports?
I like, just playing sports, like, just like basketball when I can. I don't really got time to do it, but I like playing basketball, like being outside, playing a little soccer with my daughter, going to the gym, just hanging out with friends. I think like for me, work's stressful. So being able to go out with my friends at least once a week, kind of de-stress, going out to dinners, things like that. Obviously spending time with the fam. Those are things I really like to do when I'm not doing content.
Nice, nice. What are you really most grateful for at this time?
Man, I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for my family, and I'm grateful for the opportunities to connect with people, to help pay my bills by doing something that I love. And I think that's what's really cool. Like, when you work at something and you get compensated for it, I think those are like the two best things you can possibly do. And those are things that I'm grateful for.
Nice. Are the Dolphins going to win the Super Bowl?
I hope so. If I'm a betting man, I think the 49ers win it. I just think they're just the best team. But I think the Dolphins, if they keep trending the way they're trending, I think they have a shot.
The way that Kansas City's playing, like this is not a rapid fire, but you're. I mean, I could see the Dolphins getting in there, and how just from a football standpoint, how exciting would it be to have like that Dolphins offense in the Super Bowl? I think it'd be
Man,
fun.
it would be like, it sounds corny, but it would be a dream come true. Just following a team for so long, and you always hear about like the 1972 Dolphins and all these things. And during my lifetime, I haven't experienced like the Dolphin, or when they were good, I was too young to remember. So being an adult and seeing the Dolphins in the Super Bowl would be incredible. Hopefully, we would win it in that scenario, but it would be the best thing in the world. I truly hope that happens.
That would be fun. My daughter loves secondary to the Seahawks. She likes the Dolphins because it's a dolphin, of course,
Yeah.
and the colors are great. And she likes Tua, so I'm all for that. As for your journey in the fantasy industry, obviously we've kind of rapid fired through some of this stuff. But who are some of the people that have had just a massive impact on you?
Oh, that's a great question, man. I would say, people have had a massive impact on me. Shout out to Chris Allen. I say Chris Allen from 4 for 4, and those. Well, he's in Fantasy Life now. He's been he's a dear friend and great asset. Marcus Grant. Uh, shout out to Matthew Berry. One thing that I loved about like guys like Marcus Grant, Matthew Berry, and the CBS guys like Heath and Jamie and all these, and Matt Harmon, all these big time guys. Like, shout out to Fantasy Football Confidential. That was the first podcast I ever had. So Linda, John, Mitch, they are influences too. But those big time people, as I was growing, they came on the podcast, and they didn't have to. They didn't have to do any of these things. And that's another reason why I carried myself the way I did, because when I was small time, when the podcast was small time, I grew myself enough where I was able to ask these people to come on my podcast, and they took the time to join me. And I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And to me, like, those bigger people finding the time to, go on my podcast, and, I'm not paying them or anything. They just did it for the goodness of their heart. It meant a lot to me, and it motivated me to help, become somebody. And that ties into positivity, right? I want to represent myself in a way. And that's why when people ask me to do shows, like if I have the availability, as long as it works with the schedule, I'll do it. I don't care how big you are, small you are. Like, that's what matters to me. I want people to grow and enjoy what they're doing. So yeah.
I love it. I love that. I love that gratitude. That's great. What advice do you have for people that want to get more involved in the fantasy industry and follow your path?
Oh, I would say don't be shy, connect with people, be consistent. I would say that tweeting a lot, like whatever social media you use, you need to be consistent with it. Because I feel like, and you want to have a healthy work-life balance. I feel like when I first started, I was just being consistent with tweeting, and it helped me grow and helped me meet a lot of people. But I definitely got to a point now where my work-life balance and like content balance is much more manageable. So I would say like be consistent, because if your goal is to grow in the industry or grow in your craft, like you're not going to do that just periodically, you know, periodically tweeting or posting or whatever. Like, you got to be consistent about it, and you can't be shy to reach out to people, to collaborate with people. And I think collaborating is key. And that's one of the reasons I'm here with you. Like, look, we're collaborating right now. And no one can do it by themselves. So don't be a one-man show. Like, collaborate with people, enjoy people, respect people, and also carry yourself professionally. Like, be consistent, carry yourself professionally, because people are watching the way you tweet, the way you act, the way you talk to people. Like, be professional, be kind, and be consistent.
That's great. Consistency and established relationships. I love that message for sure. Now, Troy, is there anything we haven't covered that you want to share before we close things out?
Man, I would just say, Dr. Kevin, thank you so much. Look, you talking about me being positive. Shout out to you, man. Shout out to giving me this, platform. I seen your other interviews. You do a great job. And obviously you've been the mainstay in the community for a while. Shout out to you. And, just shout out to everybody who's helped me get to this point, man. Anyone that I've contributed to, people I've interacted with, all my friends in the, Twitter space. And I appreciate, the support, the continued support. And yeah, just thank you. And I'm grateful.
Hey, I'm grateful for you, man. I appreciate everything you do. Tell the listeners where they can find you.
Sure. You can find me at TKingMode on all social media platforms. Twitter's my main home base. I'm trying to do more on other platforms, but if you want to find me, really get on Twitter. That's where I'm most consistent at. And yeah, I appreciate y'all. And RotoBaller too. Make sure you find my content at RotoBaller and High Point Sports.
Absolutely. Follow Troy wherever he's at, because it's great stuff. And if you want some uplifted positivity, he's your guy for sure. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode, Troy. Let's get back here in the offseason. We'll talk all things dynasty.
You know how to find me, man. Hit me up, bro.
Let's go. It was an absolute pleasure to have you, my friend. Can't wait to see you in Canton or maybe at an SFB Live next year.
Absolutely, my friend. Can't wait.
Right on.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. Until next time, be sure to follow and subscribe to all of FFU's social media accounts for daily content.